have made the progress we have made as a country because our citizens have entrusted successive governments to work for them and the common interest.
There are working families who are afraid of what lies ahead.
You guys are no great advocates of freedom of speech at all. And I shudder to think of the day when you would ever be in authority.
You're a disgrace. You're only in the bottom of the barrel now.
To make it even worse, you say you care about first-time buyers.
Housing crisis, health reform and rising to this climate challenge.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to week 2 of Reach PLC's new YouTube series, Dáil Talk, with myself, Ferghal Blaney, political editor at the Irish Mirror, and our political correspondent, Louise Burns. Hello, Louise.
How are you? I'm good.
Good.
Ready to talk about RTE.
Yeah, the reason Louise was a bit reluctant to say she was good there is because the main event on our agenda today is what the whole country has been talking about, folks. It is the RTE scandal involving Ryan Tubridy and secret payments, and it became very political this week because the RTE executives came into the door for a grilling, a long grilling, a 4.5 grilling. But before we get into that, we'll give you a brief little summary of what happened in the past week, just as an intro to that. So the story actually broke last week while we were doing our own first episode of Dáil Talk. I was down in Cork and news started to seep in, and Louise was up in Dublin, that there was secret payments had been paid to Ryan Tubridy, €345,000 approximately, that nobody had known about. Even people in RTE hadn't known about it. Most of them are claiming they know nothing, as they say. And we've had a long week since then. It's trailed out all over the weekend. First of all, you had a couple of statements from Ryan Tubridy last Thursday and Friday that really only threw fuel on the fire, I think, and I think most others would agree. When first of all, he said that there was nothing untoward that had been done here and that he basically knew nothing. And then the next day he apologized because everybody saw quite clearly that the figures are published every year of his salary, and there was major discrepancy of 50,000, 75,000. And he apologized then for not letting people know that he knew basically that there were differences like that. And then the weekend landed. The Sunday papers had a field day. The whole country was talking about it. There wasn't a cafe or a pub in the country where the name Ryan Tubridy wasn't heard at another table across from you. I can guarantee you for that for sure. Then all of a sudden, it came into the political sphere, I think. We heard that 2 committees were going to be looking into this. Today, we had the media committee, basically. It's got a longer title, but we'll call it the media committee. And they had RTE executives in. And tomorrow, Thursday, we're going to have the Public Accounts Committee, which is the Dáil's spending watchdog. And they basically look over all the spending in the state. And since RTE is a public body funded by you and I, the taxpayer, around half of the money they get, about 300 million quid a year, they get about half of that, just over half, is from the TV licence fee, which you and I and everybody pay. So that's why it is very much within the Public Accounts Committee's remit. In the meantime, it came up in the Dáil during leaders' questions, both yesterday and today, Wednesday. And this morning, Leo Varadkar said in the Dáil that he didn't quite accept an RTE statement last night where they, I'll use this expression, threw Dee Forbes under the bus, the resigned Director General, who they're saying knew about the contracts with Ryan Tubridy in great detail. He doesn't accept that nobody else really knew anything. And that was at around 12 o'clock today. At around 1:30, this marathon committee began, and our own Louise Byrne had to sit through close on 5 hours of that. So, Louise, I'll hand it over to you now.
Yeah, so I suppose this committee has been highly anticipated all week, and there's been a lot of questions about who will be coming in. The main person that they did want in was Dee Forbes, who has now resigned as Director General of RTE after being suspended. They had sought her to come in all week. It transpired that she was not well enough to come in for a variety of different reasons. But I suppose the question was, who else knew what? You mentioned that statement there from RTE on Tuesday evening, Ferghal, and they said, basically, to sum it up, a lot of people knew a small amount of details, but Dee Forbes basically knew everything. And I think that statement that RTE put out on Tuesday night in many ways created more questions than it actually answered. So we had quite the ensemble in from RTE in front of the Oireachtas Media Committee. You had the Deputy Interim Director General, his name is Adrian Lynch. You had the board, the chair of the RTE board, Siúni Rally. You had the current CFO, Richard Collins, and the commercial director, Geraldine O'Leary, and a range of other people. To be perfectly honest, I actually don't know where to start. It was a very, very long 4.5 hours, but I think the main question, and the question that a lot of people have been asking over the last few days, is where is Ryan Tubridy? He's obviously been missing from his radio show since this news broke. It broke on Thursday evening, so he didn't turn up on Friday morning to do his radio show. He said that in a statement that he had been told he wasn't to come to work, and he was very disappointed about that. So a lot of questions about where Ryan Tubridy has been and when will he be back. And in response to questions about that, Adrian Lynch, the interim deputy DG, said that it's just not possible for Ryan Tubridy to be on the air at the moment, and that they can't give the airwaves to someone who's in the middle of a controversy. And like you said, Ferghal, Ryan Tubridy is very much the news inside Leinster House, outside Leinster House. There's nothing really else going on. It's been a week of Ryan Tubridy and RTE, so you can't really go in and have someone reading out the front pages of the papers when they're on every single one of them.
From listening to the 4.5 hours there today, from listening to the executives, from listening to the angry TDs and Senators at the time, do you think Ryan Tubridy can come back? That's the question we have to ask ourselves now, isn't it?
I think it's so unclear at the moment, to be perfectly honest. I mean, and this question was asked, when will he be back? And all Adrian Lynch said was, it's just not possible for him to be on the air at the moment. So it's a good question. When will he be back? We still don't know, even if he will be back. And I think the attention is not going to turn away from this over the next couple of days. So I don't know is the honest answer, if it's even possible for him to come back. We've seen the outcry from employees in RTE over this. And I think just to actually put it in context what the scandal is over, it's over the fact that Ryan Tubridy was paid €345,000 that was not declared by RTE. And we've heard from so many colleagues in RTE, and we have to say we stand in full solidarity with all the journalists and all the staff in there at the moment. But we've heard so much from them over the last little while about the penny pinching that's been going on, the fact that there wasn't money to send out people on projects. And they are really hurt that this money was paid to Ryan Tubridy when they were being told that there was no money there. So you'd wonder, can he go back? Will staff want him back? How will he mend those relationships? I think it's really all to be seen, and I don't think we'll have that answer for a good while yet. No, I think myself, I suppose my take on it is that I'll borrow one of the headlines from Irish Mirror.ie earlier on, that he seems to have gone from the darling of the nation to public enemy number one. So it's going to be very hard for him to come back in this environment anyway. And I won't give credit to the Fine Gael TD who said it to me, but I was just leaving Leinster House there an hour ago, and he said that it won't be too easy to market Ryan Tubridy as somebody to represent your brand anymore if you were going to be sponsoring the Late or anything. In fact, he said it'd be easier to market Philip Schofield at this stage, but that would be a personal opinion from him. So it's going to be very hard for him to come back. Maybe he might come back after the summer, but in this febrile atmosphere, oh my God, well, if he did come back, and if he announced he was coming back next Monday, I'm telling you, the ratings would go through the roof as well. And that. But, well, they even announced it though. Like if it would be me, I would just turn up to work. I wouldn't let the speculation start. I wouldn't say Ryan Tubridy's back tomorrow. I would just turn up, have people tuned in to what they think is Oliver Callan or whoever else is turning in, and then it's Ryan Tubridy. And I suppose in that way you'd kind of erase a day of stories, because all the stories on, say you're coming back on a Monday, all the stories on the Monday morning wouldn't be Ryan Tubridy's back today. So you're kind of erasing a day of stories. But listen, who knows? We have more reports to come from Grant Thornton. We have an external government review. I don't know where the end of it's going to be, but it's important to note actually as well, Ryan Tubridy hasn't actually done anything legally wrong. I think that is an important point to note here.
Of course, yeah. I'd 100% obviously agree with that. And also Noel Kelly management. He's managed many of the top stars, as they call them in RTE, or the talent. They use that word talent, and a lot of people are finding that a strange way to describe them today. But one person who's been identified as having huge talent, and I think it was one of the top lines in just the past half hour, just when we thought after 4.5 hours that there wasn't much more to come out of the committee, we heard about Patrick Kilty, and he's the new man in the hot seat when it comes to the late. So Tell us exactly, Louise, just remind me, I was just kind of trying to catch a few things in my ear, that they might try and get his salary that's always been secret for everyone else, and he's stepping into this job. Are they going to find out what we're paying Patrick Keelty, the cute little northerner?
To be confirmed. So obviously Ryan Tubridy stood back from the Late on March 16th, and the question of who would replace him again dominated news cycles for the last couple of months. It was announced eventually that it was Patrick Keelty, and obviously with this controversy, the question has turned to, well, how much is Patrick Keelty getting paid to do the Late? We don't know if we're getting those answers. What RTE have said is that if Patrick Keelty is agreeable, they will publish that. And we obviously know that Patrick Keelty is coming back over and forth from London, and he has his BBC radio show to do on a Saturday morning, so there are going to be arrangements put in place for him. So whether we get those details as well remains to be seen, but I think there is significant pressure now on Patrick Keelty to reveal his salary. The media minister Catherine Martin was asked about this on Tuesday, and she said, listen, anything that can help with transparency. So what Adrian Lynch told Niamh Smith, who was the chairperson of the Oireachtas Media Committee, I actually think it was Shuni Raleigh said it, one of the two of them. There's been so much over the last 4.5 hours, as you might imagine. But they said basically it's going to be a meeting on Friday. Whether or not Patrick Keelty is agreeable to publish his salary will be discussed at that. And if he is, that information will be made public. So all going well, if he is agreeable, we could have the information by Friday evening. If not Friday evening, then Monday morning. But I think the first step in that is confirming if he is agreeable to have that information public. He was asked about this controversy earlier in the week. He didn't necessarily answer it. He said something like, I'm going to need another beer before I answer that question. So he tried to play it off. Patrick Keelty, he's a comedian. We're not really surprised by that, but I think the pressure is going to come on him now to reveal what he is going to get for the Late.
Yeah. And you know what I think? I think RTE should reveal it, to be honest. And if you were in a business situation, let's have a look now here. We are funding RTE to the tune of 160 to 180 million. By the way, I think that's going to drop hugely in the next year. I don't think a lot of people are going to pay their license fee after all this. But if you look at how much we pay the taxpayer, that's you and I, that's everyone here listening and watching this, we pay over half of what RTE gets, okay? So in a normal business, that would make us a majority shareholder. As a majority shareholder, we should be allowed to have a look under the bonnet. We should be able to say, hold on, what are we paying this guy? He's the highest paid. He's one of the biggest expenses in the business. So whether he's agreeable or not, if I were RTE board, I'd go into them on Friday and him on Friday, then he'll have someone with him, of course, and say, well, you know, would you like this published? And he'll go, I'm not so sure. Well, I'm afraid to tell you that, you know, in this environment, in this atmosphere, we're going to publish it. So there you go. And we're very, very interested to see what he gets, because it's going to be one show a week. It's going to have him coming over and back from London. It won't be cheap. And listen, I think he's a great guy. I think he's going to be refreshing. I've seen him in many interviews. So he's very good. And Tommy Tiernan as a guest this year, to be honest. He mixed the light with the heavy. He has some tragic circumstances in his own past, his family up north. And I think he'd be a great host in the show. But as the taxpayer, as the license fee payer, I think we have a right to know how much the top star in the company that we effectively bankroll 55% of their money at the moment. I think we have a right to know. So,
and I suppose it's worth noting as well, we will eventually find out. These top earners are published every 2 years. We don't know if Patrick Keelty will be in the top 10, but I think it's pretty safe to assume he probably is. It's still to be confirmed, but I think, it's a pretty safe bet if you wanted to put money on it. So we will find out anyway in a year or two. They publish the top 10 salaries on 2 years in arrears. So we will eventually find out. So I guess the question is, what harm in releasing it now?
Yeah, 100%. And I want to just touch on this as well, Louise. We'll give different perspectives on this, I suppose. But the radio show I think it's built on trust. And Ryan Tubridy has had the trust of the nation for a long time now. He sounds very sincere when he appeals to the nation through all of COVID and etc. And it's that trust that has been breached. I know RTE have said the trust has been breached over the issue of the pay, etc. But the fact that he presented himself every day as someone the nation could go to. I've talked to people over the weekend. It's midweek now. It's rolled. And I think that trust and that respect has waned and it's ebbed away. To go back to the analogy of Jerry Ryan back in the day, every housewife in the country was listening to him. I think Ryan Tubridy's lost the mammies of the nation now. So I'm not sure if he can come back. And if he does come back, will anyone listen to him? Has he lost his core listenership? Has he lost the fans? Has he lost the people that used to, wait on every word he said, that would turn up ironically at sponsorship events and I'd be delighted to see him presenting awards and that. So if he has lost that trust, that faith, that sense of empathy with people, I'm not sure if he can go back on the radio show at all. That's another issue. And then the main political point, I suppose, we are a politics podcast and YouTube series, is that if he is going to be interviewing politicians going forward, if he's going to be holding people to account after what has gone on now, serious questions there for RTE themselves, whether they can allow someone to do that. They've said at the moment they can't right now. What's going to change come September if he comes back and he's going to have politicians, public figures, which he has now and again on his shows. He does have social issues. Tough one, guys, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right, Ferghal. I think the trust has been lost in Ryan, but I think more importantly, trust has been lost in RTE in general. And I think that's really worrying. And I think there's going to be real questions over the next couple of months as to how RTE has approached this and the measures that they took. I mean, during the Oireachtas Media Committee, we heard from the chair of the board, Shuni Rally, that she asked Dee Forbes to resign on the 16th of June. So that was nearly a full week before any of this came to light. And I think it's just worth saying, as Director General, Dee Forbes, under legislation, was obliged to come in and speak to Oireachtas Committee meetings that had asked her to come in. By asking her to resign, she was no longer compellable, and she was no longer had to come in and answer questions from TDs and Senators. And during that meeting, Shuni Rally said to Fine Gael's Brendan Griffin that question, it didn't even cross their minds. They didn't even think that by asking her to resign, they were effectively giving her an out from coming in front of the Oireachtas and answering questions. And she's a central character in this. There's no other way of putting it. The Grant Thornton Review has said it. RTE have said it. Now, like I said earlier, everyone knew something, but she was the one that knew the most. So by, they were making her exempt from coming into this committee, and it kind of beggars belief. And the fact that that wasn't even thought of when they asked her to resign, it's just, my mind is blown, to be honest. I actually think that was the most shocking thing from the whole meeting. I couldn't believe it when they said it. And the fact that it wasn't even given thought to, it just blows my mind. So I really think they need to look at the culture and the governance and the accountability, because, I mean, the TDs and the Senators, the Senators aren't elected, but the TDs are, and they are there representing the normal people. They're there representing their constituents, and they want to ask questions on the taxpayers' behalf. And to hand Dee Forbes a get out of jail card effectively, you have to question what the thought process was there.
Yeah, I'm going to be nice here for a change. It might shock you. I feel for Shuni Rally here a little bit.
So do I. No, so do I. 100%.
Yeah, it's a tough one. She's only in the job a couple of months, basically, and all of a sudden this has landed on her. This is the biggest controversy ever to rock our team, perhaps. And I think she made a mistake. You're right. She made a mistake by asking Dee Forbes to resign. But at the time, just to be devil's advocate here, I don't think she really knew how big this was going to be in a political sense. I didn't think that she thought that there'd be two committees that would need Dee Forbes. It's like Hamlet without the Prince, to be honest, without Dee Forbes. Maybe Ryan Tubridy should be Hamlet, or Dee Forbes could be Ophelia or something like that. But I think Shuni Rally made a big mistake that day. But the main point is Dee Forbes shouldn't be off the hook just because of this. She's got paid £2 million over the past 6 years. And there has to be some sort of responsibility. She's always talked about when she came into the job how much she believed in public service broadcasting. She came from a large American conglomerate that owned Discovery and all them channels in Europe. And she said she wanted to come back to do her bit for public service. And if she could do her bit for public service, to be honest, by turning up to the committee whenever she's feeling well enough. I've just another thought that came to me there. You made a great point at the start of your last contribution there, Louise, that it's not just the trust in Ryan Tubridy, it's the trust in the whole organisation. The last time the trust in this organisation, RTE, was challenged was us. I'll say 10 years ago, I think it was 11 or 12. It was the documentary they had. It was a disaster. It was called Mission to Pray, P-R-E-Y. And they went on the attack. It got very legalistic in the end, but they went on the attack against a priest called Father Kevin Reynolds, who was on the missions in Africa. They made all sorts of allegations about him, and we're not going to any detail because they're horrible. They were wrong. They didn't double check their facts. He proclaimed his innocence, and it turned out he was right. And they did not know their fact. They did not do their fact checks. They did not do what most people in RTE do, which is diligent journalism. And heads rolled over that. and Kevin Backhurst came along shortly after. He was actually the incoming DG, and a lot of people credit him with some great reforms there. So they lost that trust and credibility. I think it was 12 years ago. It took a long time for it to come back, and God Almighty, it would be a terrible shame if they lost a similar level of credibility and trust, because it has that same feel, it has that same level of resonance that this is just, everyone's just going, this is not on. People are using stronger words than that all weekend. But I love RTE, for God's sake. I'm not one of these ones that just lives on streaming. I need to fix the news. I need to fix the current affairs. God Almighty, I might even leave Fair City on the odd night. You know what I mean? But I need RTE, and I hope it survives, and hope maybe it comes out of this stronger. But there's a lot of work to do, isn't there?
Yeah, but I think at the time as well, and we saw the importance of journalism over the COVID pandemic, and not just from RTE, but from everyone. And we are at a stage in time where there's a lot of disinformation out there, a lot of people spreading things that are not true, and people need to trust good, reputable news sources. And we go to work every day, you and I, Ferghal, and that's what we try to do, and as do many of our colleagues, and including our colleagues in RTE who are not involved in this at all, and they feel so hard done by in this. I really can't emphasize enough how upset, how angry they are, because they go out every single day and they try to bring people the truth, and for them to get caught up in this just because they work in RTE, it's really not acceptable. And I hope for their sake that RTE can rebuild that trust, and not only rebuild the trust with the audience, but rebuild the trust with the staff. I think that's going to be the first step in a very long process. Yeah,
100%. The staff in there, you and I know them, many people, they've got 1,800 to 2,000 staff. They're all very good people. They're great people. And a lot of them are at lower levels. They're not getting paid. No one's getting paid what Ryan Tubridy was getting paid. But most people in there are getting less than a tenth of that. So it's important that we remember all them days like this when everyone's cursing RTE from a height. Just remember that there's ordinary people in there. They're working at midnight, some of these people, putting these shows together. They're in at 4 a.m, the researchers, so they're the real people. We should feel they're getting damaged by the people up high who seem to be just, they don't care, it would seem, about the people down below who find it very hard to get the resources they want and all that. But anyway, I think it's time to move on to, we always try and end this series with a little lighter moment of the week. And last week we had Pascal Donoghue donning his, and we had a picture of him from the past donning his Stetson for Garth Brooks, because he said that he was a Taylor Swift fan. I forget what his favourite song was. Louise, what was Pascal's favourite song from last week? I put you on the spot.
In No Exile featuring Bon Iver.
That's it, exactly. And just as a follow-on, this isn't our funny moment of the week, but Taylor Swift, she can't get out of the Dáil record. She was on it again today when it was raised in questions to the Taoiseach by Thomas Pringle about price gouging of hotels, because that was similar to Pascal last week. So 2 weeks in a row, Taylor Swift has made the Dáil record in relation to price gouging. But the moment we've chosen this week is seagulls. I'm sure you've all seen the seagulls around. I think it's urban seagulls especially. They're huge. They're monsters. I don't trust them at all. But they're in the news again this week, and they're in the political news because in Drogheda, it seems to be seagull central. And up there's the former mayor, Frank Godfrey, a colourful character in his own right. And he says Drogheda is under siege from the seagulls. And it reminds me of the Senator Ned O'Sullivan, who in 2014 raised the issue in the Shannon about seagulls. He said, oh my God, he goes, these seagulls, they're everywhere, they take the sandwich out of your hand, they take the eye out of your head. He goes, I've nothing against the pigeons, he goes, but I'm very much against the seagulls. And that's come along now 10 years later. I think the seagulls have got bigger since. And up in Louth now, it's become a serious problem. And you can actually read about it tomorrow, and you can maybe see some pictures on irishmirror.ie, because one of our reporters, the brave Danny Duval, has gone up to Drogheda today. He's donned himself in all sorts of tasty seagull treats. I don't know, is he dressed in kebab meat or chicken kebabs or whatever, but he's braving the streets of Drogheda to make himself tempting for the seagulls of Drogheda. And I hope he doesn't get too henpecked up there. So
I'll always remember before you and I worked together in the Irish Mirror, Ferghal, I was working for a different newspaper, and you and I were in a taxi together one day to an event, and you came out of Leinster House and you just told me that a sausage roll had just been stolen by a seagull.
Yes, yeah, right in the middle of Grafton Street. I had my earphones in. I got an awful fright. Because there was another tale I heard. There was Kevin Humphreys, a Labour junior minister. He told me that years ago there was a seagull actually that had a special taste on on Grafton Street. And he was asking me, could we get a photographer out? And we never did, but it would have been a great idea. He alleges that there was a seagull that used to sit perched on top of River Island on the far side of Grafton Street. And he used to wait and wait and wait every morning. He'd be there at around 9:30 till 11, whenever McDonald's do their breakfast. But he had a very particular taste for sausage egg McMuffins. And Kevin Humphreys told me, if you waited long enough and just sat across somewhere there around River Island or A&B and Grafton Street, sooner or later you'd see some poor, unsuspecting sausage and McMuffin fan be walking about to take his first bite. Seagull would swoop and he'd score. So there we go. Seagulls in the news again. Okay, folks, I think I'm delighted to end it there on a lighter note. It was a serious week. We stuck to one topic this week, RTE in the Dáil, basically. And there was a lot of Dáil talk, and there will be more Dáil talk about it again tomorrow and again all over the weekend when I think the whole country will be conversed. But you've been listening to Dáil Talk. It's the new YouTube series here from Reach PLC, and I've been Ferghal Blaney, political editor, and this has been Louise Byrne, our political correspondent. And so it's goodbye from me for this week, and it's goodbye from Louise.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.